Drivetime on RTE Radio 1, sponsored by Zurich. Insurance to suit your needs. Protect your home, car or van with Zurich.
A government task force on the aviation industry has recommended that quarantine and international travel restrictions be lifted from next week. The expert group has said that Ireland is significantly behind other countries in lifting restrictions, despite having a better record on COVID-19 than many other countries. The move would open up international travel to Ireland by removing the need for arriving passengers to quarantine for 2 weeks. Now, Fergal Keane has the details and he joins me. This task force, convened by the Minister Shane Ross, is made up of experts in the aviation industry.
They all have what we call skin in the game. Now, they were put together only earlier this month and as representatives from the airlines, the tourist industry, airports, unions and officials then from government departments. They were meant to report on July 10th to the Minister, Shane Ross, but they've come out with this interim report today recommending the more or less immediate lifting of restrictions from next Wednesday, that's July 1st. The Minister said today that there were important public health issues to be considered, which means that NEFID would be running their eye over this before anything happens, but it is quite a strong recommendation.
The aviation industry internationally, it's on its knees, it's in crisis. You've been speaking to people in the business today, getting some idea of the crisis for them in this country. And
there are protests now, we know, going on and disputes starting at Aer Lingus. There is a dispute at Cityjet, and I was at the Cityjet headquarters near Dublin Airport today where pilots were having a picket. The company is in examinership and there's a fear that many of the staff there will lose jobs. Now, at that protest, I met with Eoghan Cullen, Captain Eoghan Cullen of the pilots union IALPA. I asked him how pilots had been affected by the travel industry collapse.
Of our 1,200 members, approximately 600 are surviving on social welfare of some form, and the others are on between 25 and 50% of their non-flying income is basic pay, essentially. So we are going through an enormous crisis, no question.
What are your members saying to you about it?
Well, what is particularly devastating for us is the direct employees have some rights and some protections. But unfortunately, Irish aviation facilitates wholesale precarious employment practices. People who have no protections, no redundancy rights, no rights to even basic representation. Leo Varadkar and Pascal Donoghue are former ministers for transport. They are well briefed on the precarious nature of employment in Irish aviation, and they have done nothing to protect the situation at all.
What do you want to see happen?
Well, first and foremost, we believe the travel advisory of non-essential travel and the 2-week quarantine period is out of step with the professional view of doctors in the European Centre for Disease and Protection and also the European Aviation Safety Agency. Ireland is an outlier in its approach to aviation travel in the context of this pandemic, and we need the Irish government to really take a proper assessment based on the science that's coming from the European Aviation Safety Agency and the European Centre for Disease Control. We can't have this situation where Ireland continues to impose restrictions that other EU countries are not doing.
And that was Eoghan Cullen of IALPA. Back to the dispute at Cityjet, Fergal. What is that dispute about?
The company has lost most of its business. The only surviving routes they have at the moment are contracts with SAS in Scandinavia. Now, pilots with Cityjet are saying they fear that Irish jobs are going to be farmed out to Copenhagen in particular. And at that picket today, I spoke to Ian MacDonald, the Assistant General Secretary of the Force of Trade Union. He told me what today's picket was about.
The protest is about what has happened up to date with our 30-day redundancy consultation period with Cityjet. What has emerged is that the examinership process is failing to support Irish jobs. The company had said to us up until about a week and a half ago that up to 23 of the pilots who were under the threat of redundancy, and that totals 57, would have the opportunity to continue flying from the Irish base on a new plane model called the CRJ type. However, the company reneged on those commitments, as I said, a little over a week ago, and the examiner has failed to support our position that they should honour that place that they brought us to.
How many pilots do we have, and what is their future now?
Well, we have 57 pilots here at the Irish base, and their future is bleak. Without the follow-up of the assurances we got from the company in our engagements that they would continue to have at least 23 pilots present at the Irish base, they face unemployment and redundancy. There's a very loose commitment to allowing some of those pilots relocate to Copenhagen if they want to relocate completely. However, there's no meat on the bones of that either. And again, I have to say that what is the purpose of an examinership process? This company is in an examinership. Our understanding was the primary purpose was to make sure that Irish registered companies could continue for the purpose of having Irish employees. And what's happening here is that the company wants to keep its model registered in Ireland, but they want to employ pilots from other jurisdictions and make all the Irish pilots redundant.
Ian MacDonald there from the trade union force. You spoke to Cityjet as well. What did they have to say?
I met Pat Byrne. He's the chief executive of Cityjet. He says the scale of the crisis in the aviation industry is unprecedented and that many airlines are going to go under.
Yeah, I mean, the worldwide crisis has hit us like a brick. Suddenly, revenues overnight just stopped for every airline virtually on the planet. It's been absolutely horrific, and it means that we all have to recalibrate and see where we're going from here. But it has thrown us into a complete and utter crisis, which is why we're actually in examinership, because what we're trying to do is protect the core of the business. We've lost 4 out of our 5 major wet lease contracts with other airlines, including Aer Lingus, Brussels Airlines, Air France. SAS is our remaining contract, and even that contract has actually been reduced in size. But essentially, we've lost 60% of our business.
In terms of flights, how many flights was that? How many flights out of Dublin were gone?
Out of Dublin, our last remaining activity out of Dublin was we were flying for Aer Lingus on Dublin-London City, which was an average of 6 return flights per day. Monday to Friday, reduced programme on Saturday and Sunday. So that was our only out of Dublin activity. Everything else that we have been doing has been based in other countries in Europe, flying for European airlines.
The people who've been protesting here today, the pilots, say that they believe that you're trying to move a lot of the operation to Copenhagen.
That's very inaccurate. We've been operating in Copenhagen and Stockholm, Helsinki, throughout the Nordics since 2016, because we fly the largest part of the SAS regional network, so we've had to have bases in those countries. So it is not that we're trying to replace the pilots here in Dublin. The pilots here in Dublin represented 8% of our total pilot force for the SAS contract.
What do you have to say to these pilots who have been protesting outside your offices here today?
Well, first of all, I empathise with them. I empathise with any of our staff who are in danger of losing their jobs and are fearful for their livelihood, because it is a shocking time and it's very, very scary. So I have a huge empathy for the individuals. I'm not pleased with Force IALPA, because we've been in a consultation process for the last number of weeks, and twice they've elected to unilaterally go out and bleat to the media about their side of the story. And that's not the way that we like to conduct our business.
You don't think there'll be any Dublin-based flights coming back?
I have no idea. We've lost our contract with Aer Lingus. That was terminated. So we have to try and find new work out of Dublin. It may be there, it may not be there. We don't know. We are making every effort to try and create opportunities. But the future is very uncertain. We're in a very bleak time, and we haven't seen anything like this before. We've seen 9/11 and we've seen the recession in 2008. But quite frankly, this is something that's pretty dire, and it has taken the wind out of every airline. Most airlines are going to be 30-40% smaller than they were going into this thing. It's going to take 3-4 years to recover from it.
What do you think the casualties will be in the airline industry overall?
I think that a number of airlines will go bust. I think that we have a reasonable chance of protecting the core and getting through examinership, but I think we have a chance of surviving. I think that very few regional airlines will survive. I think there will be an enormous casualty rate. If we do survive, and this is the note of optimism, if we do survive and get through this, it is a case of last man standing, and it is a case that there will be opportunity, because the first airlines to recover in this, I believe, will be regional because of the size of airplanes that we operate. To those pilots who are, fearful for their jobs right now, I do think there will be opportunity again. I just can't put my hand on it and say it's going to be contract A or contract B. But all I can tell you is we're out there beating the bushes and working very hard to try and find more business in Dublin and beyond Dublin.
And that's Cityjet's Pat Byrne painting a bleak future for the aviation industry, ending Fergal Keane's report.